As we begin a new series of sermons on why I am a United Methodist Christian, I really wanted to start this series with my own personal story. I was baptized at around a year old as an infant, waiting only for Brother S.B. Williford, our district superintendent, to have time to come and do it while Dad was pastor at Tuckerman on March the 18th, 1951. Now, while I was still too young to know that I was a Methodist, my family moved its membership to that large downtown Conway United Methodist Church in the spring of 1951 when Dad was appointed pastor there. There at that vast downtown cathedral, the work begun me at Tuckerman was continued, and we lived there till I was about 10 years old, completing the 5th grade. But during those formative years, I came to answer quite naturally to the name Methodist, and have been one ever since. Now, Dad stayed at Conway First Church for 10 years. Then we moved to Winfield United Methodist Church in Little Rock and lived there for 5 years. And during that time, I went to Forest Heights Junior High and then to Hall High. And at the end of my 10th grade, Dad was appointed as the district superintendent of the Conway district, so I went back to Conway for my 11th grade, but that was only for 1 year. Then we moved to Fayetteville my senior year in high school, and Dad stayed there for 13 years as pastor of Central United Methodist Church in Fayetteville. But I was only there 2 years, my senior year in high school and my first year in college. But it was while we were at Winfield that I went through confirmation, made my profession of faith, and first felt the call to the ordained ministry. I still have my confirmation New Testament Bible that the church gave me on April the 22nd, 1962. But it was during a Sunday night worship service when Dad's associate, the Reverend Bill Elliott, was preaching. And while we were singing, "Are You Able," said the master, that I turned over to Mother and said, I think I'm being called to be a United Methodist minister. And I was in the 7th grade at that time. It may kind of sound a little strange for me to admit it, but I didn't really choose to be a United Methodist. I was born and I was made one because I went to church. Would my spiritual journey seem more interesting if I could tell you that I became a United Methodist only after a long, tortured process of reflection, investigation, and study? If I examined all the possible denominational options and found the United Methodist to be the most credible and Christian? I don't really know. I sure can't claim that that's the way I became a Methodist. I'm here because I was put here, because I was born a Methodist, and because I was raised a Methodist. But in my involuntary placement among United Methodists, that doesn't bother me one bit. We in America often exalt the freedom of choice. We like to think of ourselves as independently derived and self-made men and women who are who we are because we decided and we chose to be that way. We like to believe that religion isn't really yours unless you found it all by yourself or on your own choosing as an individually thing that's just right for you. But in one sense, it's kind of like school. If you don't get educated through some sort of formal education process, guess what? You don't get educated. Same is true of this stuff we call our faith. Our glorification of our power of choice overlooks the fact that so many of our really important things in our lives, our looks, our name, our family, our tradition, our inheritance, has come to us not through our own choosing, but rather through the choices of others. My whole life has been a life of accepting the authority of those placed over me, especially where it comes to where I live and where I work. As a child, we lived where the bishop sent us. In faith, we trusted that God could use us there. And as an adult, I've lived and worked where the bishop has sent us as well. And in faith and grace, we have moved and worked and lived by faith and trust and grace. A home has been provided for us at every church out of grace that I've served. An office, a church, a community, and friends have also been found in every location. So many of the really important things about me, I believe, have come to me as a gift. In other words, for grace. I am who I am more by grace than by choice. And the same is true of you as it is of me. And that's why I'm a United Methodist. I still answer to the name United Methodist Christian when called that, mainly because someone else told me the story. Lived the gospel for me in places like Tuckerman, Conway, Fayetteville, as a child, in places like Yellville, Paragould, Bearville, Ozark, Camden, Carlisle, Stuttgart, Hot Springs, Morrilton, Blytheville, Jonesboro, and now here in Little Rock, where I serve as a pastor in a way that made me know that this was my story, truly, my name, my salvation, but all by the grace of God. You know, James B. Duke, who founded Duke University, where I went to seminary, explained his philanthropy by saying, "My old daddy always said that if I amounted to anything, it'd be because of the Methodist circuit riders." And I believe that if I ever amount to anything, it'll be because of United Methodist Church. Why am I United Methodist? I'm that way because of a gift, because of grace.